An introduction to and basic exercise using Blender as a product creation tool for IMVU. Session overview, getting to grips with Blender, basic modeling, materials, textures and images, UV maps, IMVU setup and FBX export, IMVU FBX import and assembly. First, getting to grips with Blender. Blender is designed to work with a 3-button mouse. This can be real or emulated from user preferences. Left-click selection. The left mouse button is generally used to interact with Blender's interface by left-clicking buttons, menus, settings, options and properties, or by left-click dragging the border between areas to change the layout's appearance. Left-click manipulation. The left mouse button can also be used to manipulate objects. For example, left-click dragging widget handles or loops to move, rotate or scale objects or selections. Middle-click manipulation. The middle mouse button typically controls the view. In the 3D view, middle-click drag rotates, shift middle-click strafes, control middle-click zooms. In other views, editors and panels, middle-click drags strafes or acts as an alternative to scrolling. Right-click selection. The right mouse button is the main way objects and data is selected. Simply right-click to select. Where several objects are available, right-clicking each in turn cycles through the selections. The last one clicked remains active in the scene. Right-click multi-select. The right mouse button is also used to make multiple selections. Holding down Shift, right-clicking a number of objects will select them. Shift right-clicking the same will deselect. In the following, the default cube will be used to make a simple wonky stool. It will be duplicated, shaped, joined, and then reset. First, the blocks used to make the stool need to be created. From the default scene, use Ctrl plus middle-click drag and Shift plus middle-click drag to move closer to the cube. Left-click the Object menu below the 3D view. Left-click Duplicate Objects. A new instance of the cube appears moving with the mouse. Right-click to release and reset. Then left-click drag the coloured widget handles to move it to one side. Left-click dragging to move. Left-click release to confirm. Repeat the process using the new object, the active selection by default after creation. With the new object active, right-click if not, that's left-click the Object menu, left-click Duplicate Objects, then right-click to release so the item can then be positioned left-click dragging the coloured axis handles of the widget. Repeat until there are 4 new boxes, 5 including the original. Once the blocks are available, they can be shaped to fit their role. To create a seat block, right-click the original cube, left-click the Scale Manipulator button to activate, then left-click drag the widget's blue handle down, shrinking the height of the box. Left-click Release to confirm. Right-click one of the other cubes to select, then left-click drag in turn the green and red handles of the widget inwards, shrinking the width and depth, creating a leg. Repeat the process for the remaining cubes, so right-click to select, then left-click drag the red and green widget handles inwards, changing the object size. This produces 1 seat element and 4 legs, the latter being approximately the same size. Once resized, the objects can then be repositioned. After scaling, left-click the Translate widget button in the 3D view header. Then right-click one of the newly shaped legs, and using the green and red widget handles, left-click drag the object to one corner of the seat. Right-click another leg to select and repeat, left-click dragging the object into one corner using the red and green widget handles. Repeat for the remaining legs so the seat eventually has 1 leg in each corner. After positioning, the legs can be tilted to add visual interest to the stool. Before continuing, right-click select the seat object left-click the View menu, then left-click Align View, View Selected to recenter the scene on the objects. Right-click one of the legs, left-click the Rotate Transformation button, then left-click drag the green and red loops to tilt the legs slightly on both axes. Once done, right-click one of the other leg objects and tilt inwards, again left-click dragging the green and red loops. Release left mouse after each action. Repeat for the remaining legs so all four tilt inwards from their respective corners. After these basic manipulations are done, the objects can be joined. With the legs tilted, left-click the Translate widget button and then right-click the seat section. Use Ctrl or middle mouse drag to zoom out if needed. Then left-click drag the blue widget handle upwards so the mesh sits atop the legs. Next, right-click one of the legs to select, then shift right-click the remaining objects, the seat last, to add them to the selection group. Left-click the Object menu, then Join to connect everything together into a single object. Test right-clicking the object and pressing G. The entire stool will move with the mouse. Press Escape or right-click to reset. The next step after the mesh is made is Materials, either editing the pre-assigned default or adding a new one. First, editing a pre-assigned material. Before editing materials, move the cursor over the border between the 3D View and Properties section, left-click drag to expand when the double-headed arrow appears. Next, left-click the Material Properties button. In the pre-populated panel, left-click the text input field below the aperture and type stool or similar, then press Enter to confirm. In the Diffuse subsection, left-click the color sample area, then left-click anywhere in the color wheel that appears to make a selection. Move the mouse to one side to confirm. Next, editing the pre-assigned texture properties. To access, left-click the Texture Properties button. In the pre-populated panel, left-click the text field below the aperture, type Stool. Press Enter to confirm. Left-click the Type drop-down menu, left-click Image or Movie. Finally, adding an image to the predefined material. Once the texture is set up, scroll down to the Image subsection. Left-click the New button. In the New Image dialog, left-click each input field and type Stool for name and 256 of both width and height, pressing Enter after each action. Left-click the Generated Type menu, left-click UV Grid, then left-click OK to complete. Finally, scroll down to the Mapping subsection and left-click the Coordinates menu. Left-click UV to set and complete editing of the pre-assigned default material. Where an object has no material pre-assigned, one will need to be created. If the mesh does not have a material assigned by default, after adjusting the panel, left-click dragging the border when the double-headed arrow appears, left-click the Material Properties button to display the ostensibly blank panel. Left-click the New button to populate. Left-click the Material ID text field and type Stool. Press Enter to confirm. In the Diffuse subsection below, left-click the Light Grey Sampler. In the pop-up that appears, left-click or left-click drag the color wheel to set an optional material color. Move the mouse to one side to confirm. An initial set of material properties is now created. Adding new texture properties. Next, left-click the Texture Properties button to again reveal an ostensibly blank panel. Left-click the New button to populate. Left-click the Texture ID field to highlight the default text and type Stool. Press Enter to confirm. Finally, adding an image to a new material. With texture properties added, in the Image subsection below, left-click the New button. The new image pop-up will appear. Here, left-click the Name input field and type Stool. Press Enter. Left-click Width and Height in turn, typing 256. Press Enter. Left-click the Generated Type selector, left-click UV Grid, then left-click OK to complete. After creating the image, scroll down to the Mapping subsection, left-click the Coordinate selector and left-click UVs from the list. Once done, the image can be assigned to the mesh. The next step is to UV unwrap the mesh so the image associated with the material can be assigned. First, switching to Edit mode and making a selection. To assign the now available image, right-click select the mesh, left-click the Viewport Shading button, then left-click select Texture from the list, ensuring the image is displayed in the 3D view once assigned to the mesh. Next, left-click the Interaction Mode button, left-click Edit Mode. From the Select menu, left-click Deselect all to clear active selections, then left-click again to reselect everything. Once a selection is made, the UVs can be unwrapped. In the Outliner editor, top right, left-click the Editor Type selector and left-click UV/Image Editor. Mouse over the border between the new editor and the Properties panel below, and left-click drag down when the double-headed arrow appears, resizing the areas. With the UV Image Editor visible, left-click the Object menu, then left-click UV Unwrap Reset. This unwraps the selected faces, which then appear in the editor. Once the selected UVs are unwrapped, they can be mapped. With a set of UVs available, in the UV editor, left-click the Browse Image to be Linked button and left-click the previously generated image from the list. Based on this selection, it appears under the highlighted UVs and displayed on the mesh. Once the UVs have been mapped, they can be edited. Once UVs have been assigned an image, they can be adjusted for a better fit. With the mesh selected, right-click, switch to Edit mode, left-clicking the Mode selector and left-click the Face Select button. Right-click a face belonging to a leg, then using Shift plus right-click, select the remaining faces of the leg, adding them to the group. They will be highlighted and shown in the UV editor. Here, left-click Select, deselect all to make sure the UVs are selected, then left-click the UVs menu option, transform, resize, then press the Y key to lock the transform to that axis. Move the mouse to resize, then left-click to set. Once the initial leg UVs are changed, right-click under the mesh face in the 3D view to clear the current selections, shift right-click additional faces to include in a new group. In the UV image editor, again left-click UVs, transform, resize, pressing Y to lock the axis. Left-click to confirm the modification. Repeat for the remaining legs and seat section. Right-click, shift right-click to make a selection in the 3D view. In the UV image editor, left-click UVs, transform, resize, then press Y or X to lock the appropriate axes, left-clicking to confirm each change. When making multiple selections, make sure to complete a given scene manipulation action beforehand to prevent accidental selection. Middle-click drag to rotate, release, then shift right-click select. Repeat for each new group selection. Right-click, shift right-click, release shift, middle-click drag to rotate. In this way the scene can be manipulated and selections made, one action following on from another. When changing the horizontal seat UVs, after initiating resize, press the X key, locking movement to the horizontal axes. Manipulate the mouse, left-click to confirm. Once all the UVs have been adjusted, left-click the Mode selector, then Object mode to exit Edit mode. With the image UV assigned, it and the Blender project can be saved. Once the image has been mapped to the object's UVs, in the UV image editor, left-click the Image menu option, then Save as Image. In the File browser, left-click the File input field and type a new name if needed, press Enter to confirm. In the Save as Image Properties area, left-click the Format selector and choose a lossless image format. Then left-click the Save as Image button, top right. Next, save the Blender project itself. Left-click File, Save As to open the file browser. Left-click the file name input field and type a name if needed. Press Enter to confirm. Then left-click the Save as Blender File button, top right. With the stool made and fully textured, it next needs to be set up and prepped for IMVU before export to FBX. First, the wonky stool needs to be appended into the furniture file. To prepare the mesh for IMVU, open the Furniture Starter file. Left-click File, Open. In the file browser, find the .blend, left-click to select, then left-click the Open button, top right. Once loaded, left-click the File menu again, then left-click Append. In the file browser, left-click the wonky stool file to access its contents. Left-click the Objects folder, left-click the Mesh, Cube in this instance, then left-click the Append from Library button, top right, loading the mesh into the scene. Due to a size disparity between Blender and IMVU, the mesh will need to be resized. To make the appended mesh larger, left-click the Scale Manipulator button to activate. Then left-click dragging the white multidirectional manipulator loop near the widget's center. Slowly move the mouse away from the object, increasing its size, matching the cube's breadth and depth. Release left-click to confirm, then left-click the Transform Manipulator button. Left-click drag the widget's blue handle upwards, positioning the seat of the stool level with the cube's top. Release left-click to confirm. Once the stool is correctly positioned, make sure it's selected, right-click, then left-click the Object menu. Here, left-click Apply, Rotation and Scale, resetting the object and fixing its dimensions. After being positioned and reset, objects can be parented together. Once positioned and reset, with the object selected, right-click, left-click the Object Data Properties button. Here, in the Vertex Group subsection, left-click the plus button to the right of the aperture. Group will appear. Double left-click the entry highlighting the text for editing and type root, uppercase R. Press Enter to confirm. Next, left-click the Mode selector, switch to Edit Mode left-clicking that option, then in the Select menu, left-click Deselect All to clear active selections, then again to ensure everything is highlighted. Back in the Vertex Group section, left-click the Assign button to associate the group with the Mesh selection. Test left-clicking the Select and Deselect button also in the Vertex Group subsection. Left-click the Mode selector and switch back to Object Mode, left-clicking that option. Next, make sure the stool is selected, right-click, then shift right-click the root node. Left-click the Object menu, then Parent, Object, Object Keep Transform in the Parent to pop-up that appears. Test pressing G and moving the mouse. The seat mesh will follow. Right-click to reset. Adding a seat to the stool. Before adding a seat, right-click the Standing Helper, then shift right-click, add the remaining elements to the group selection. Left-click the Object menu, then Show Hide, Hide Selected, hiding the objects. Right-click the green and white cube and similarly hide. That's left-click the Object menu, Show Hide, Hide Selected. To position the seating, right-click the large node directly beneath the avatar, Seat 01. Left-click the Translate button, then left-click drag the green and red widget handles in turn, positioning the seat group relative to the stool. Make sure to allow room for the avatar's feet as it switches between poses in IMVU. Once placed, right-click one of the seat nodes, shift right-click the remainder, then shift right-click the root node, including it last in the group. Finally, left-click the Object menu, then Parent, Object, Object Keep Transform in the Set Parent to pop-up. Right-click the root node and press G to test. The entire seat and stool will move with the mouse. Right-click to reset. After parenting, the stool and seating is ready for FBX export. Once parenting is done, right-click the wonky stool mesh, then shift right click everything except the seated avatar mesh dummy. To then export, left click the File menu, Export FBX. In the File browser, left click the file name input field and type a replacement if needed. Then in Export FBX Properties lower left, left click the Selected Objects checkbox to activate under Main, left click Apply Modifiers in Geometries to disable, left click the Add Leaf Bones checkbox in Armatures to deactivate, leave animations untouched, and left click the Export FBX button top right, completing the process. Once the stool and nodes have been exported, the file can be brought into IMVU using the FBX importer. Loading the file into the FBX importer. To import the FBX, click the Create Mode button to start, then the yellow Derive New Product button. This opens the Derive a New 3D Product pop-up. Here, click Rooms and Furniture, then Furniture. The default chair will appear. Click Go and start the project. Once the chair loads into an editor, click the Import FBX tab, then the Load FBX button. In the dialog that appears, browse to and select the FBX file, then click the Open button, bottom right, loading the data into IMVU. FBX Import Settings. After loading the FBX file, the importer will be populated with data. Here, change the Mesh ID to 0 if replacing the default chair, and apply Scale to 0.01 when exporting using Blender's FBX defaults. Click the Import button, then import changes in the Import Status pop-up that appears. The FBX panel will then be shown empty, confirming import. After import, changes need to be applied to the project. Once the import tool displays blank, click the yellow Apply Changes button above to automatically assemble the product from the imported data, completing the process. All that remains is for the project to be saved and uploaded to the catalogue, so click the yellow Save button or the black arrow to save as. Type a file name, then click Save. Once done, click the yellow Upload button to begin the submission process. In the Product Submission dialog, click the Add Image button to browse to, select and open a 100 by 80 pixel JPEG, GIF or PNG. Type a product name, for example Wonky Stool. Set the item rating, GA in this instance. Type a profit value, for example 100. Check the remaining settings, then click the Submit to Shop button. This opens the product page where the item can be finally published and once past peer review, available for purchase and use.